Hi, this is Cynthia from Cynthia's Chair, and today I'm going to show you how to make a garment bag or a garment cover. I'm going to use this on some of my clothing that I don't wear during one of the seasons, and it's just so I can keep the dust off of them. The other reason I'm doing this is because I have a lot of extra fabric. Either people have given me fabric and I just have a ton of it and I need to do something with it. So I'm going to show you today how to make a garment bag like this. This right now has one dress in it, and I'm just going to show you how to do it. Now, your dress or your clothing, whatever it is, whatever article of clothing you might want to make a bag for, is going to a little bit dictate your fabric. So I made one of these bags recently it was wider, and the reason it was wider was because the dress had a full bottom, and so I just needed it to be a little bit wider. This particular fabric that I have, if I can show you here, I have this folded over right now, and if I measure it out for you, it is 43 inches wide, and that happens to be wide enough for this particular size. So all I have to do with this width of fabric is fold it in half so that I'm able to make the garment bag. The previous one that I made, because the dress was much wider at the bottom, I ended up folding my fabric down instead of across because I needed the width. And this particular fabric, let's see what its width is, because although it says it's something on the bolt, it maybe isn't necessarily that. And this one happens to be 35.5 inches, and that's what I needed for the fullness of the other dress. So what I'm going to do is get this fabric ready, and I'll show you how you determine your length. Let's take this one out of here. So whatever garment you're trying to put into your bag, you're going to want to put it on a hanger, or you can just measure this. You don't have to do it this way. I'm going to measure from the hanger right here because that's where the opening is going to be for the hanger. So I'm going to place it about where it's going to be. So then you're going to want to measure from the top of your hanger right about there where it's going to go through the opening down to the length that you want for your garment. And I'm going to go past the dress. Coming just down to the end of the dress gives me 35 inches. I'm going to go to the 40-inch mark, and I'm going to mark that so I can then cut it. And so this is not an exact because it's going to be longer than it needs to be anyhow. But what I'm going to do is line this up, and I'm going to chalk it. Whoop. I don't know how many times I've broken this small chalk. And as long as I can generally see that line, and then what I'm going to do is use my scissors to cut that. And I firmly believe in using the scissors to do most of the work. So instead of just snipping across, this particular fabric will allow me to cut and then draw it through so I don't have to spend all that time snipping, and there we have that cut off. So now what I'm going to do is take this to the sewing machine and get everything ready. We're going to need to make the hole, the opening for those for the hangers to go through, and we're going to need to sew our seam. The nice thing about this fabric that I'm using and the width that it is, this is the salvaged edge. And so whenever I sew this right sides together, I don't have to worry about using pinking shears or even doing a zigzag stitch because the salvage edge is not going to unravel. Now, whenever you're ready to take this to the sewing machine, the other thing that you want to do is you want to line up whichever end is going to be for the hanger, and I'm just going to have it be this end up here. And I again am going to get my measuring tool here and find about the middle, and I'm going to want an opening. This one is the right size opening for me. So that opening is about 3.5 inches. You might want to just measure your hanger and make sure that that's going to fit. So I need 3.5 inches roughly, and this is 21.5 inches. So I'm going to be measuring off 3 inches here. And that's where I will put my opening so that the hanger can go through. So now we're gonna head over to the sewing machine. So here I am at the sewing machine now. I'm just gonna sew this top section, and I'm gonna sew right up to my, my mark that I made with the chalk, and I actually marked on both sides depending on which side I was actually sewing up to. So I'm just going to go to that mark. Make sure you back stitch and then pick it up again at the other side. Back stitch again. And now I'm going to sew that long salvaged edge that we talked about. Get my other seam going here. Now I'm going to take my scissors and just snip that corner where those two came together so that when I turn this around, I have a nice point there. And what I have been using, because it's been working really nicely for me, is one of my creative memory tools. It's a multi-purpose tool, and it happens to work well for corners. So it's just this that I've had for a long time, and I do use this blunt end rather than the pointed, but you can use whatever you typically use to turn your fabrics around and get your corner pointed out. And there I have it. So before I take this over to press it, I'm now going to stitch this opening so that I have a nice clean finish. And all I'm doing is lining it up with the stitching I just did. Making sure I keep the other side out of my path of the needle. I'm going to stitch this one side down. And then come over to the other side and do the same thing. there are several ways that you could do this opening. You could even do it like a buttonhole, a long buttonhole, and then just cut it open. So however you want to do it. And now I'm just going to snip my extra threads, and I'm going to take it over to my ironing board and press it, and then do my bottom hem with the elastic. I'm just going to press the seam just to make it lay nicely. And also the top seam. So one of the options that we have to finish the bottom of our garment bag, I'm going to show you here, is to apply elastic. And what I've done is I'm going to do my elastic and my hem at the same time. So I've just folded the material over right here, and I stitched the one end of my elastic so it's intact. At the other end of my elastic, I have one of those sewing clips that I've used before. That's just going to help me keep a hold of my elastic so I don't lose it as I'm sewing. Now you might not feel comfortable doing this. You can make your own casing hem and then feed the elastic through, but I'm just not going to take the time to do it that way. So I'm just going to sew this in place, folding as I go. And again, as I did in other videos, you could use your clips to hold that intact if you felt like you needed to do that, rather than self-feeding. And then just removing them as you go. But again, I'm not going to be doing that. So let me finish this around. You want to make sure you do not catch the elastic in your thread, because you want it to be free flowing. Now I'm getting here close to my end, so I'm going to have to keep track of this end of my elastic to make sure I stretch it. So I'm just going to give a tug. I'm going to give a tug here, just like that. And finish this end off. Might have to stretch that. See how I had to do there a little bit, so that my elastic is staying where I want it. And I'm coming right up here to the end. I'm actually going to take that clip off now. Now here I'm coming up to the end, and I want to let that elastic now come back through. I'm just going to feed it right there. Keep my finger on it so it doesn't go sliding out. Oop. And just make sure that I catch it here. Because my thread is so close to the color of this fabric, it's not going to matter that I didn't stick right on the, but you can see that the elastic has held, and it's just going to give me a little bit of a bottom there, just to kind of hold the bottom in a little bit. So here I am with my finished garment cover. I'm going to call it a garment cover, garment bag, whatever you want to call it. This is not something I'm going to be using to transport clothing, but rather I'm going to use it for seasonal clothing to keep things dust free when it's hanging in my closet until I switch out. And there we have it. Now, your other option, and something that I've done with another one, just so I could see which way I prefer doing it, is I actually put snaps at the bottom here. And as you'll see, I did elastic in this one. So you also have the option of, lay this down here, of cutting at an angle. I don't feel the need to do that. I know that some people do, but I think that this is gonna hang just fine, and I'm gonna be putting more than one dress in this particular garment bag. So hope you enjoyed this video. Happy garment bag making, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna put new things, innovative things up, hopefully on a regular basis, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.